what is going on YouTube? It is your boy Tropical NHL back at it again for a brand new YouTube video. Today we're back in here to talk about the Montreal Canadiens. And yes, we're here to talk about something pretty interesting in my opinion. It's just an opinion. It's not rumors. It's not anything. Today we're going to be talking about my opinion on something, and we're going to be talking about some trades. Yes, we're going to be talking about some trades, some future trades that might happen for the Montreal Canadiens in the next year. Because yes, I genuinely do think that the Montreal Canadiens are in for a big trade to happen in the next season. Well, more in the next year or so, from September 2023, aka right now, to September next year. I think that the Montreal Canadiens are going to be making a big trade happen that's going to help the team right now, and that's going to help the team be really good for so many years in the future. So yes, we're going to be talking about that today. Before we're going to get to that, I invite you guys to subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to get to 5K subscribers before opening night for the Montreal Canadiens. So if you can help me out with that, that would be amazing. More than 70% of people watching the videos aren't subscribed. So if all of those people subscribe, we're going to be getting really close to that 5K objective. Let's try and get 100 likes on this video as well. Let's get right into it. So yes, today, like I said, we're going to be talking about a possible trade, and why do I think that the Montreal Canadiens are going to be making a huge trade happen over the next year. And when I'm talking a huge trade, I'm not only talking about a trade for a certain player or a trade like Marc Bergevin used to be doing. I'm talking about a major trade that's going to be changing the face of the franchise. I think that in the next year, from September this year to September next year, in between those 2 months, I think that the Montreal Canadiens are going to be making a huge deal happen. And like I said, I'm not talking about a Marc Bergevin type of huge deal that we're used to have. Like for the last couple of decades, the Montreal Canadiens haven't really made any big movements. Like, yes, they've made some decently big movements, but they haven't made that huge bomb. Like, the biggest trade that they made for me since I was born in 2001 was probably the PK Subban for Shea Weber trade back in 2016. I think it's the biggest trade I've seen coming from the Montreal Canadiens. Yes, Kent Hughes, since he got here, he made some pretty big moves as well. But right now, I'm talking about a bomb. A bomb. Like, for example, the Vegas Golden Knights acquiring Jack Eichel, or the Pittsburgh Penguins acquiring Erik Karlsson. I'm talking about these types of moves that change faces of franchise. That's what I'm talking about, and I think that the Montreal Canadiens are in for one in the next year or so. And I'm going to explain why. Why do I think that? Well, it's pretty simple, really. I know a lot of people still are debating about tanking, and I think the Montreal Canadiens are past that point in their rebuild. They've been tanking for the last 2 years. I think they're going to be entering right now a transition, and we've seen all the teams go through a rebuild, go through that transition where they're not really tanking anymore, but they're not aiming for a playoff spot either. Just like the Detroit Red Wings have been in for a couple of years. The Buffalo Sabres have been in that category for the last couple of seasons. Same thing for the Ottawa Senators. You're not tanking anymore. You're just trying to get better. And that's where the Montreal Canadiens are in right now at this moment in time. The Montreal Canadiens are in the transition from where they're going to be a bottom team to a competitive team that's going to compete for the playoff every year and maybe compete for a Stanley Cup really soon as well. They're going to be entering that transition as soon as this season. So for the people that expect the Montreal Canadiens to be a bottom leaderboard team that are going to be tanking for a top 5 pick, I'm sorry to tell you that right now, but that's not what's going to happen. The Canadiens are going to be more competitive this year. They're not going to make the playoff, but they're going to be higher than they were in the last 2 years in the standings. That's where they at the moment. They're going to be trying to develop the young guys, give them ice time, and try and get to that next level where maybe next year they're going to be entering a window where they're going to be able to compete for a Stanley Cup. So at that moment in time, the Montreal Canadiens have a lot, but I mean a lot of really good prospects that have a decent value on the market at the moment. And they also have a lot of picks. They also have a lot of first-round picks and second round picks in the next couple of drafts. So since the Canadiens already have a lot of pretty good young guys and they're in a window where they're trying to get better and they're not tanking anymore, I feel like that opens kind of a window where they will be ready to like pay really a heavy price to get a player, a young established player that's capable of helping the team at the moment, and that's also going to be able to help the team in the longer term. And that's what Kent Hughes said his objective was. He said that the objective was not only to win a Stanley Cup, but the objective was for the Montreal Canadiens to be competitive for a very long time, just like the Chicago Blackhawks used to be, just like the Tampa Bay Lightning are right now, just like the Capitals, just like the Penguins. Those teams, for some of them, are still good, and for the others, were good for a very long time, just like the Red Wings, for example. So that's what the objective is for the Montreal Canadiens. So at the moment, they have all of those young guys, they have all of those future assets, but not all of them will have a spot on the team. So you're better off trying to maximize their value at the moment for some of them. So I'm not saying that Kent Hughes is just going to throw away some young guys for some older players that are going to be useless in 5 years from now. I'm talking about Kent Hughes making a trade happen for a young superstar that is going to fit right in the core at the moment, and that's going to be a part of this organization for a long time. And I have a couple of examples here and there. If some players are made available by their teams, I think that the Canadiens are going to be pushing. If there's a young established player that still is not in his prime yet, that is going to have a really bright future for at least the next 8 to 10 seasons, I think the Canadiens are going to be pushing. And I have some names. Elias Pettersson. Elias Pettersson already talked about his desire to maybe leave Vancouver depending on where they're going to be going over the next seasons. And if the Vancouver Canucks are not capable of getting out of that transition from being a bottom tier team to being competitive, I feel like Elias Pettersson is most likely going to be asking for a trade. And if this happens, I feel like the Montreal Canadiens are going to be one of the teams that are going to be ready to pay out the most to get a player like that. I also have Clayton Keller in mind. All of those players that are young, established, and still have a lot of good years inside of them, if some of them are made available, the Canadiens are going to be pushing because they're entering that window where they're going to be trying to get better. They're going to be ready to give out future assets to be competitive in the next couple of years. And I know some people are going to be like, well, Tropical, they're better off keeping those future assets. But when you look at the Montreal Canadiens a couple of years back, Marc Bergevin had a lot of future assets as well. He had some pretty good picks. He had some pretty good prospects when you go back to 2014, 2015, 2016, where the Montreal Canadiens were really competitive. They were kind of right in the middle where they could be competing for a Stanley Cup, but they could be a bottom leading team as well. Bergevin did not make those movements that could have helped the Canadiens be better. He holding on those future assets, and at the end of the day, they were all worth absolutely nothing a couple of years after. And if he made those deals back then, maybe the Canadiens would have won a Stanley Cup. And I feel like most GMs understand that if you want to win, you need to sacrifice some assets. And I think that Kent Hughes is one of those GMs. So I feel like the Habs are, like I said, getting in a window where they're not going to be tanking. They're going to be trying to get better for the next 2 or 3 seasons to be competing for a Stanley Cup in 4 to 5 years from now and be good for a very long time. So like I said, if a young established player is made available on the market, Kent Hughes is going to be active on him. He's going to be trying his hardest to get that player in Montreal, and he's going to be ready to pay. They are going to give prospects. They might give some active players. They might give some first-round picks as well. But I feel like the Canadiens are going to be entering that window, and that a major superstar trade is going to happen over the next year. So yeah, let me know what you guys all think about this. Would you guys be ready for a deal like that to happen? Or would you guys be pissed off? Let me know in the comments below what you think about that. It's been your boy, Tropical NHL. Subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, share, do anything as you want, and I'll see y'all later tomorrow for another video. Bye-bye.